Alright, hi guys, I'm Guru Patik, and today I'm going to be doing a replay review of a 2.5k SF Mid. This guy posted on Learn Dota, and I'll read his post to you, just so you know what he said. And he says, anyone willing to watch and critique my 2.5k inability to take over a game that I should have won? I would greatly appreciate it. I dominated mid as SF, and I had 74 last hits at 10 minutes. To their mid's 19, but I obviously didn't snowball properly. It's definitely not my best game, and even in-game I was aware of some of my mistakes. And then he gives an example of some of his mistakes. Talks about how his item build wasn't proper. I guess I'll just read it to you. One example is when I sniped their courier at about 35 minutes in or so. I didn't want to fight, and I even told Jug to back, but he ran in and ultied. And I fought and got like 1 kill for my Aegis in second life because we took a dumb fight. Also, my item build was probably wrong. I went for a fairly late SNY because I felt I needed to tank up a bit. If anyone could be willing to watch this and give me some pointers on snowball decision making, that would be awesome. Thanks. Alright, so it sounds like we're going to watch a game where this guy plays SF and he does reasonably well in lane, whether it's a good matchup or he has good stacks, good support rotations, something. His first 10 minutes is going to go well. But he felt like he just couldn't control the game and win it, even from a really dominating position. So it's probably because of mid-game decision making, but we'll see when we get there. So the SF we're watching is this No Daddy Big Tail. I'm going to watch mostly from his perspective, and we'll see how it goes. I might replay at certain points just to rewatch it. I haven't watched this before, so this is kind of a first run through for me. So first things first, if we look at the lineups, SF and Jug are the two cores on this team. It looks like a Windrunner off lane. It might be Windrunner support. I'm not exactly sure. Considering Undying is walking to the top lane. It might be a dual lane top. It seems like that's what their laners are going to be, and Dazzle will be supporting the 5 position. Whereas their lineup, they've got DK, who almost always goes mid. Could go safe lane. But they have a PL, so it kind of makes sense that the DK would be safe lane. Tide will be in the off lane and probably support Wisp Silencer. When we're looking at these lineups at the beginning, I think it's really important to, one, figure out who your matchup is going to be against. And it looks like it's going to be SF versus DK mid. And the other thing you want to figure out is what team has better late game. So looking at the lineups, it looks like the other team has a little bit better late game because Jug and SF don't really match up that well against a Phantom Lancer in the late game. They don't offer good enough AoE to be able to clear the illusions. And in the late game, the illusions might become a big problem because Undying doesn't have any AoE. Jug has some AoE, kind of forces him to go Battle Fury. Dazzle has situational AoE, Power Shot's not enough to clear illusions, and SF, he's not the best at clearing illusions. He can with his ultimate, and sometimes if he hits like 2 or 3 raises, but it's pretty situational. So PL is really scary if I'm looking at this lineup, and I think a lot of this game I would be devoting my time to trying to shut down PL because he's the scariest on their team. In terms of starting item builds, because he's going against DK, so the matchup of just SF versus DK is pretty SF favored. He elects to go for 2 GG branches. He gets pooled 1 Tango. I think it's good in this situation to go for the Wraith Band because DK has pretty high base damage, 53. And you have pretty low base damage, and yeah, you can raise for last hits, and that kind of works. But I think you really do want the Wraith Band, and because it is a matchup that you can dominate, I think having a little bit of extra base damage early is better than getting your bottle early, but we'll see how it plays out. Some of it's a playstyle decision, and some of it's how comfortable you feel with farming. Me personally, though, I'd go with the base damage for sure. But it's not wrong, it's just a difference of opinion. So he walks up to the top rune. Looks like he's willing to contest. They've got Undying, so chances are he's going to get this rune. And I don't see them contesting it very well, which is really good. It puts him really close to bottle. With this bottle rush, so the point of going this bottle rush is essentially There are opportunities in the mid lane where you are weak and you can be ganked and killed. And the first one is when you don't have your bottle. The second one is when you don't have your boots. And those are kind of like the two major opportunities to get kills in one-on-one situations. And by going this kind of less greedy build, you eliminate one of those options by basically having your bottle at 20 seconds. So because he went for this build, I'd want him to skill raise at 1. He goes for Necromastery, which is okay. The problem with Necromastery here is it doesn't really synergize with getting an early bottle. Because what you want to do is you want to get last hits, and you want to get your bottle early. And bottle not only restores health, but it also restores mana. And if you're not using your spells, then it's kind of a waste. I mean, it's good that he skilled it, got his raise, and kind of used it immediately to kind of take advantage of that bottle right when it comes out. So it just looks like a bunch of farming. Camera positioning is okay. There's nothing in particular for him to be worried about in this game. If there was a Potom or roaming, wouldn't be too concerned. Or you'd have your camera in a different position. You might position yourself a little bit differently, but he's doing okay. He's gotten 5 last hits in the first 2 waves. He could stand to harass the DK a bit more, but he's doing that now. Went for a deny there instead of a last hit. I don't know if I agree with that. Most of the time you want to prioritize your own farm, but it was a good raise to take both of them. I think he missed a kill there. Let's go back and rewatch this. I think this is a dead DK. So like right here, he could be up on top of his hill rather than positioned down here in such a way that it forces the DK back. But since the DK came back up here, and if we'll pause it right here, you can see the DK is tanking 4 creeps worth of damage. He's only got 1 raise because he's used his middle raise to farm these 2 creeps back here. So what he could have done is used his shorter raise here, and that would allow him to have both of these raises, because when you're going for kills as SF, you generally want your mid and your long range raise, because most people aren't stupid enough to walk up and get raised by your short range raise. So in general, when you're farming creeps and you're not feeling a lot of pressure, I'd default toward using your short range raise so that you can keep these 2 open and available for kill opportunities, essentially. And right here, the DK is a kill opportunity. And he chooses to right-click him, gets a raise, gets decent harass, but if he had this spell off of cooldown, might have gotten him. He also could have gotten him if he'd walked up a little bit and then raised in anticipation with his short raise and then hit him. But it's alright. Here it's good that he's pushing in the wave. DK is low. I think this is a mistake. So it makes sense that you want to go for the 2-minute rune, especially considering you rushed a bottle. But DK is low, and he's low under their tower. And so what that means is you've given up the opportunity to basically pressure this guy under tower. He's a fairly slow hero. Like, you could walk under and you could raise him and maybe get a kill. You could play really aggressively is what I'm trying to say. But instead you go for the bottle, or for the rune. I think it's definitely the safe play. But in the opening here, I think you've played pretty well. You have pretty good CS through the first 4 waves. 10 out of 16 is pretty good. And you've got boots, bottle. You're set up really well to do well in this lane. Keep watching from your perspective.
Haste.
Part of the reason, I mean, going for that rune is okay there as well. A lot of it's what your vision up on the top lane looks like, because going for the top rune, especially as Radiant, it's a bit dangerous, because supports tend to rotate down for the rune. This is 2.5k, so they don't do that very often. But in lane, you can see both Silencer and IO, so it's unlikely that they're going to rotate for the rune. So I think you could have bought a few more seconds there, or played a little bit more aggressive there, and then still gotten the rune a bit later. It's alright. So you raise to get that creep. You probably didn't need to. It's a bit of a waste of mana at this point. DK comes up aggressively on you and you don't have the mana for another raise. So that was a mistake just because he's not contesting you for this farm. You never really want to raise for farm only. The only time you raise for farm only is when you're in a lane that you're basically losing, and it's the only way you would get CS otherwise. In that situation, like, he's not contesting you, you've got about 12 souls, you're perfectly fine to just right-click it. And because you didn't, you mismanaged that raise, you basically ran into a situation where he could run up you and hit you and not kill you, and you couldn't kill him because you didn't have enough raise mana. It's okay, it's just a small mistake. Here you're focusing on denying, which is good. Walk up the hill, get more last hits, it's fine. He's setting up to raise again. So DK kind of walked into his raise, which is a benefit, but there's really no reason to raise. Like, the main reasons you want to raise are so that you can get the rune, 1. 2, maybe so you can hit a stack timing. That's a good reason. 3rd is because you feel unsafe, you feel like you're going to get ganked, or the opposing mid hero is particularly terrifying. And none of those situations apply here. You're just using mana because it's easier to last hit with raises. Perfectly fine. You want your creep score to look good, but just use the right clicks of your hero. Your spells should accomplish more than one thing at a time. You're doing really well in lane though. 17 CS is really good. This DK is kind of on the run. Okay, deny under tower, that's good. Plays aggressively, clicks off the aggro. It's really good. Another raise for no reason. Like, he's getting close to the rune timing, but this isn't the wave you want to raise to get the rune. You want to raise the next wave, and you want to raise it twice. And so, like, he should be raising right now, and then raising, like, if we watch that again, like, as this creep wave walks up, this should be a long raise right here, short raise, medium raise right here, and then you finish off a couple of these, and then you walk to the rune. That's the most efficient play here. But what's going to happen is he's going to stick around for this farm. It's a good raise to take that. You know, and he's 15 seconds late to the rune. He only got 2 out of 5 there. I'm not going to knock him for it. It's not a big deal. But he's 10, 15 seconds late to the rune. There's a lot of diving going on top. You can see IO on the map. You can see Silencer on the map. But most of the time, that's too late to pick up a rune. The support's going to rotate. Somebody else is going to pick it up. You're not going to get it. Just something to think about. So he walks up, finds a DD. That's good. He didn't send out his boots immediately. Pretty big issues with that strategically. As the mid player, you kind of have courier precedent, and you should take advantage of that courier precedent. Because if you have boots versus this DK, he's been on the run, running around at half health all the time. Like, that movement speed difference could make the difference between you getting a kill or not. Another inefficient raise. 27 CS though, really solid. But see how his mana pool is completely depleted? Like, he has no offensive capability right now, because he has no ability to raise. He can just right-click, and he right-clicks really hard. I like that he's going up onto the opponent's hill for vision, but he's used 3 or 4 raises just inefficiently, and that's, you know, 225 mana. That's a lot of kill potential that he's missed out on. So IO shows up in his lane. Not a rotation he could have seen because of his wards. Comes close to dying. They mess up. He gets away. Nice. So it was good bottle charges. I don't know. I wasn't watching his treads during that, but he seems to have a pretty good understanding of tread swapping. So I'm not going to knock him too much on that or pay too much attention to that. Raising there for farm is fine because there's 2 heroes in your mid lane and the wave's pushing into you. So there's 2 reasons you want to raise there and you don't want to raise in the other situations. One is because you feel a little bit unsafe. They just tried to gank you. So that's one reason. The other reason is the wave's pushing into you and you want to make sure you get all the CS before it comes out of the tower. You do have a DD. You do want to minimize the damage taken to yourself. That all makes sense. He's also prepping for the next rune because it's 5:45. So I would expect, or at least I would, walk up and just instantly raise this next wave twice. He chooses not to. It's a fine decision. Goes back to stack this medium camp. We'll see if he gets it. Yeah, he gets it. And then he decides to farm it. Okay use of time. He's level 7. He leveled Necromastery instead of raises. Don't know if I agree with that. It's also probably not worth your time to sit farming here. That's okay. What I would have liked to have seen there, we can go back a bit. So we'll go back to this point. I'll go back 10 seconds more. Because right here, he's sort of at a decision point where he's under the tower. Go to here. So he gets this CS here. And it's 5:42. So at this point, he actually has enough time to walk and stack this big camp right here, which gives way more gold than stacking the medium camp. But there's about 5 to 6 seconds of indecision where he sits under his tower. He's not quite sure what to do. I'm half health, half mana, no bottle, runes spawning. Don't really know where to go. And so he kind of sits under his tower here. And it basically loses him out on stacking this camp, which is way better for a Shadowfiend than stacking this camp. And so what he ends up doing is inefficiently farming a Mud Golem stack, which takes reduced damage from magic. Basically is a big pain in his butt. Whereas if he had just gone and stacked this camp down here, right, Troll's great. He would have gotten more experience, more levels, more farm. It's a minor thing. It's not a huge deal. But I think that, like, at 2.5k, you've got a pretty good understanding of how to play the game. It's just min-maxing a lot and making proper decisions in the mid-game that makes the big difference between 2.5k to 3k, 3.5k, and higher. So he goes back to base. He's got no health, no mana. I'm okay with that. No one contested the bottom rune. As you can see, the rune's still up there. So he could have gone for that. That was another one of his options when he was sitting in the mid lane. He could have gone for bot rune. But I agree that's a bit dangerous, being half health, half mana, no bottle charges. Especially considering IO was just mid and DK was mid. It's likely that they split up. One goes for one rune, one goes for the other. So it's okay that he didn't go for the bottom rune there and he just farmed. So now he goes top. And I think that's okay. They're pushing. He walks up pretty aggressively. So I think this is a mistake here. I think he should have died. Like, this is a death that they didn't take advantage on. Right here, when he walks up, he's fine right here. There's no issues with him just long raising this wave. But when he walks up here, and I'm the DK, I'm walking to stun him. Every time. I have 2 heroes of backup, I have a stun, I have a nuke, he's dead. There's just no way he should live in this situation. But DK doesn't react appropriately. He instead backs. Silencer reacts appropriately. Silencer is moving to attack him. Silencer gets spell or 2 off. SF walks away untouched. That's a mistake that doesn't get punished in your bracket, but 100% I would die every single time if I moved like that in mine. Not a big deal. I'm okay with you TPing top to help defend the push. I don't really want you sticking around here because you're missing a lot of farm out in mid, but we'll see what ends up happening. Windrunner goes in. Really nice kill. What is going on with that? That was weird. Alright, so you stuck around for a kill. Windrunner walked up, tried for a shackle. I'm okay with that. You farm your way back to mid lane. It's also good. One thing is a Shadowfiend. So when you're farming this, you didn't actually get the little skeletons. Now you may or may not want the skeletons, but knowing how to spawn them is actually pretty useful. So first thing, you need to kill a unit. Then the next thing you do is you need to manually right-click the big troll. And by manually right-clicking the big troll, he will then spawn little units. If you just auto-attack, he won't spawn. So that can play to your benefit or disadvantage. When you're jungling with Enigma, you want to make sure you don't manually right-click so that you don't spawn the little guys. As an SF, though, you have an easy way to clear them with raises. And the runes spawning, you've got 2 bottle charges. I'd be totally down for that extra 40, 50 gold, 2 CS for that 75 mana. Just something to think about. And the best way to do that, to clear that camp, is to raise once. So you raise once with either your medium or long raise, whichever you choose. And then you right-click down the little guy. Then you click the big troll manually. He spawns the little guys, and then you give your second raise to get rid of the medium troll, the big troll, and the 2 little trolls. It's a minor thing. So you're roaming back to mid, picking up the rune. This is really good movement. I like this a lot. Come back mid, you missed some farm, big deal. You got to kill top. You did a lot of things there. It's good. So now no one's here. Raise out the wave. This is really good. Recognize that no one's here to defend. You can get some good tower damage. So this is strategically what you could have done. So you TP'd top to slow their push. They had a DK up there who was pushing, and they had PL as well as, well, PL wasn't up there, but Silencer was up there, and Wisp was up there, and you chose to defend that lane, and that's fine. Strategically, you also could have come mid and punished by pushing the mid tower. Now, in terms of importance, this top tower on Radiant means absolutely nothing for math control. It doesn't protect anything, it doesn't give you more protection in your jungle, it doesn't help you do your ancients. Basically, it offers nothing in terms of map control, whereas this tower in the middle is one of the most important towers in the game because it protects a main access point into the Dire jungle as well as Roshan. And even the ancients, the Dire ancients, are less accessible when this tower is up. So if I were you, I would have never TP'd top in the first place. Even though there was some creeps in farm, I would have come mid and I would have been pressuring this mid tower because this tower is more important to me than losing this tower. And I would rather trade 1 for 1 than defend a tower that I don't really care about. It's a small little thing. But what you wanted me to critique you on was strategy.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
So raising out the wave, I like this. It's good he hit the raises properly. DK comes back, pot shot him. So he kind of missed a chance to get 2 or 3 auto attacks off there. He might have been able to kill him. DK is pretty tanky, but right here his first inclination is back. I'm okay with that. You might be worried about getting yanked. But DK is not popping his ult, not playing aggressive. You could have gotten more right clicks off. Not the end of the world. Tower HP is low. He commits for it. Gets the right click on the tower. So that's good. This is all good. 60 CS, 9 minutes. Looks really good. Got the last hit on the tower. He committed for it. Missed a raise there. Not a big deal. Goes back. Okay. I like that he only raised twice there. Some Shadowfiends will raise 3 times because it kills it. But in actuality, I don't think that's the better play. See how he manually clicked there and they spawned? This is actually a really good example. There are 2 things I want to talk about with this camp, so we're going to go back again. First thing is... Alright, game time. What's happening? Rune's about to spawn. He's about to clear these trolls. You got 2 heroes in the top lane, brown and green. So Silencer and Wisp, who are just always up in that top lane. DK's in the mid lane. And Tide, we don't know where Tide is. We haven't seen him, or I haven't been paying attention to where he is on the map. Maybe you know where he is. So it looks pretty clean right now to get the bottom rune. And No Daddy Bigtail chooses to farm this camp. If I were him, I would stack this camp, and I would take the bottom rune. And the way I would do that is by pulling this at 53. Pull this at 53, and walk around, or walk around this way. See how he manually clicked here, and then he spawned. He also used 3 raises on this camp, which is considered inefficient. As SF, the most raises you want to use on any camp is 2, unless you're clearing a double or triple stack of the big camps being this big camp on Radiant, this big camp on Radiant, this big camp on Dire, or this camp on Dire. Just minor inefficiencies, and here he comes back and clears this wave. So effectively, to clear this wave, he used 5 raises, which is a total of 375 mana. And what he could have done in this same amount of time is clear the whole thing with 2 raises, maybe 3 raises, and still get the rune, and still get the same amount of gold and farm, and be at the same position in the game. Now, that's a big difference. And it doesn't look like it now, but having an extra 150 mana, it's a pretty big deal. So now we walk back, TP top. It's pretty interesting to me that he just blindly TPs top like that without even looking. His team's probably saying, oh, we should go on top right now. And he's like, okay, I'll TP and help. But he just TP'd and didn't really accomplish anything. He never looked over with the minimap. One piece of advice, before you TP somewhere, look, see what's going on, assess the situation, rather than just go blindly. Because they didn't need you, and you didn't need to go there. You could have been farming, you could have been pushing mid, you could have been hitting this. I'm okay that you're up here, but make your movement and your TP basically worth something. And the only way to do that is basically by pressuring this tower, which it looks like you're going to do.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
Don't necessarily agree with your movement, but I'm okay with it. You're up here, you get the tower. It's good. So I'm going to pause the game here. And I like to do this when I'm playing my own games, and I think it's something that's good for other people to learn as well. You should bind the scoreboard to your keyboard, and at certain intervals throughout the game, whether it be every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, or at the end of the early game, mid game, end game, whatever you want to decide your intervals to be, you should assess how the game's going and how I should win, because the way you win is by formulating a plan. In 2.5k, and I play a lot with my 2.8k friend, he just does things, and there's no plan, there's no rhyme or reason. He just goes, you know, there's people bottom, there's a fight breaking out top, I'll just TP top. You know, he doesn't assess the situation on his own and make his own decision. Sorry about that. And so at this stage of the game, if we look at the scoreboard, which I have bound, I would recommend that you bind it. No Daddy Bigtail, he's had a really nice game. He's got a lot of CS, 75 at 11 minutes. He's pushed down 2 towers, pushed down mid, pushed down top. Highest level in the game. He looks really good. Looks like he's going to dominate this game. Who else is doing well? DK is doing pretty well. 1-0, level 8. He's behind the Shadowfiend, but still having a pretty decent game. His last hits are pretty bad. Not the end of the world. PL's level 5. Really like to see that. Tidehunter's level 5. Really like to see that. IO's level 5. Really like to see that. As a support player, my general motto is if you're having a good game, you're level 6 by minute 10. If you're having a bad game, well, you do as best you can, but ideally shoot for 6 at minute 10. So if we're looking at how this game's going, Shadowfiend's set up to dominate. They've taken out 2 towers. They have good map control. Dyer's a bit underleveled. At this point, I would be wanting to press my advantage, and he's elected to go for a Shadow Blade, which I like. I think that's a good item this game. It puts out a lot of pressure. It puts a little bit of fear in their minds because SF has a Shadow Blade, so he can go solo pick people
Radiant's bottom tower is under
and sort of
attack.
press his advantage that way. They're all team fighting bottom. SF TP top, so he can't TP bottom. Not the end of the world. Now he TP's bottom. So I can understand why you want to TP bottom here. I can understand why you want to TP bottom here. You're losing a tower, but if you look at the situation, and from what I've seen based on your perspective, you had 2 heroes that just died here. You have an Undying that is a quarter HP and retreating, and has pretty much used his spells already, and a Windrunner who's trying to support maybe coming down there. Best case scenario, you are in a 2v5 situation. It does not look good for you. I just wouldn't have TP'd here. This tower isn't worth it. Like, you could have stayed top, you could have continued farming, you could have come back to the jungle, you could have retreated. I'm okay with you TPing in here if you have mana to use your spells. But you don't. You have mana to use one raise or your Shadow Blade. So what are you going to accomplish here? I'm imagining you're just going to TP in and Shadow Blade and run away because there's nothing you can do. Or you're going to die.
Radiant structures are fortified.
But we'll see what happens.
Radiant's bottom
Sit
tower
behind the
is
tower,
under
can't
attack.
do anything. This is all just wasted time. And on a
Radiant's
Shadowfiend,
bottom tower has
the main
fallen.
purpose of a Shadowfiend is efficiency, or his main strength is. You're looking for a Shadow Blade kill. Maybe this pans out for you. Still super dangerous because there's
Dyer's
3
top
heroes.
tower is under attack.
You might just get ravaged and die. Tidehunter's only level 5 though.
Radiant's
So
bottom
you get a
tower
kill,
is under attack.
you die.
Dyer's top tower is under
You're just
attack.
too over aggressive at this point to fight. There's no point to fight. Like, if you had Requiem there, you could have done like a 4v1, destroy everyone, but you didn't have the mana. And there's no reason to go down there if you don't have a plan. Their plan was, I'm going to go down bottom, we're going to fight, we're going to get some kills. But 2 of your teammates were dead, 1 of them couldn't support, and you're not going to win a 2v4 or 5. So this is just bad decision making in the middle game. And if you look at the scoreboard, we just looked at it a minute ago. You were level 10, you were doing really well. You basically fed their whole team an entire level. DK's now 9, PL's now 6, Tide's still 5, IO is now 6, Silencer is now 8. Like, you are the biggest prize on the map when you are playing the best, and so protecting your own life is more important than getting that one Tide Hunter kill, for example. Because I don't know what the fight recap says about this, but it's about a 700 net worth change. Or 700 experience change. Or I guess you get 300, they get 600. But the experience matters way more to them because they have less of it. Gold change isn't very big. You could argue it's okay from that point, but I think this is a huge mistake and probably devalues the strength of your early game. You don't need to defend all of your towers. There's this compelling need that I'm seeing when I'm watching you to defend your towers no matter what. You don't look, you just TP in, you don't assess what you can do when you get there, you don't assess who's low or what's happening, you just go. And that's not the mentality I want to see if you want to become a better player. You've got to try to make more informed decisions. So first step, look to the area before you decide to TP. That's one. You don't have to look for long. It's not like you need to look and assess and watch for 30 seconds. That's ridiculous. Just look for a second or two, see who's low. Can I do anything? If yes, TP. If not, no. Jug gets a kill. Dies for it. Same kind of situation, right? Like, you're probably watching this Jug and was like, why did you just dive for that Wisp and then feed? But you just did the same thing. You just dived for a Tide and fed their whole team. Whereas he just dived for a Wisp and fed their whole team. So, I know, like, in your post you kind of flamed the Jug a bit. you probably don't have the best opinion of him, and he arguably didn't play that well this game. But just to keep it in perspective, you're all in the same MMR bracket for a reason. So you come out, you start farming. I'm okay with this. You need to get your souls up. That would be my main priority. You've already used 2 bottle charges though. I wonder why you used them. Probably, you only used 1 on that camp. You might have just wasted 1. It's okay. But my main priority right now would be souls, and to try to get a pick off with my Shadowblade and my Requiem. Mr. Ray's there. Well, he kind of got it. Again, minor inefficiencies. You see how there the troll didn't stack because he didn't manually right-click it. So the troll didn't spawn its little minions. Small thing. And again, it's kind of a similar situation. Is he going for it? I'm okay with this. Alright, good kill. So we're going to go back. Because I want to go back again to this situation. Could have stacked this and then gotten the rune and come back and farmed it later. Same thing as earlier. Here, I'm okay with him committing for this rune, especially because it's a haste. You don't want to waste your Shadowblade though. Your Shadowblade is kind of an escape tool. I mean, granted, you do have a haste. I don't see the reason to use your Shadowblade. Not the end of the world. It's still a good kill. You got a lucky rune, but you wasted a bit of mana. It's an efficiency thing. Team rotates, you get out because you have a haste. This is a small thing, and I don't know that it matters, but if, let's say, PL had rushed Diffusal, for instance, and he sees you diving for that Wisp, and he instantly TPs mid, he could have walked up and Diffusaled off your haste, and you would have died. So you didn't get punished because you used your Shadowblade, but you inefficiently used it to a situation where you might have died from it. I don't know what this PL's items are. We can take a look. He did rush Diffusal, but he doesn't have it yet. So Shadowblade into BKB. Okay, so your items are very much... Shadowblade's very much a farming item, and BKB is very much a teamfight item. So it sounds like you're looking to fight in the mid game. And I think from your team's perspective, that's probably how you win, is you either get really huge, really farmed, or you take all their towers in the mid game, because their late game is better than yours. And I think it will beat you in the late game if you allow it to get there at an even gold or even experience. So I'm okay with the BKB next. I think I would have gone Sanj and Yasha, just because I see the Shadowblade build as a farming build. It's like a farming and solo pick-off build, similar to Blink Yules. Blink Yules is better for picking off certain kinds of heroes, whereas Shadowblade's better at picking off other kinds of heroes and offers a little bit more defensive capability. It's just preference. I usually go Shadowblade if I don't have any other invis on my team, and I usually go Blink Yules if I do have invis on my team, but it all depends. So they're dying mid. Not a big deal. Not much you can do, you're just going back to base. Here you could have gone for bottom rune instead, but you are kind of low, their whole team's mid. I can see why you don't want to go there. So you go back, you heal up. TP to the tier 2. I like that you TP to the tier 2.
I am in your debt.
The reason I like that you TP to the tier 2 is that if a big fight breaks out, it offers the opportunity for Undying to TP in. You Shadowblade in. You're looking for a good ult. You get a pretty good ult. Silencer silences. It's really nice. So this fight, if we just think about this fight could have happened bottom if you had used your mana more efficiently, and you wouldn't have fed them all that gold. So you would have been at more of an advantage. This fight is really good, and I think he played it pretty well. I don't know why Windrunner ran up here when she's got a Shadowbladed SF running down the middle lane, but that's for later. That's just something that you have to play with sometimes.
Dire's middle tower
But this is good.
attack.
This is what the fight bottom should have been, but wasn't. You're still doing really well. You're 5-1, 105 CS. Game's going really well for you. BKB is really powerful this game. I agree with you there. Pretty much versus Tidehunters, you have to build BKB. It's pretty easy to dodge Ravage with BKB, first off. And the spell basically cripples you if you get hit by it, especially as a core. So BKB, I'm good with that decision, but it's always a question of when the BKB, because BKB is strongest when it is immediate and when it is just purchased, but offers really nothing other than team fighting. If you look at the stats on BKB, I'll pull up the free camera so I can look at the shop. Offers 10 strength, 24 damage. So for 4K, something similar, which I would be looking towards would be Sanjin Yasha, offers 16 damage, 16 strength, 16 agility, 16 movement speed. It's a ton more stats and value. You get magic immunity, which is extremely powerful for team fighting, but I mean, you team fought once. We'll see how many times you team fight with the BKB.
Radiant structures are
So you get an
fortified.
invis rune bottom.
Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
You come back mid. I don't understand why you're a bit scared here with the invis, unless you know that they have sentries, or you just picked them off with your Shadowblade and you expect them to have sentries this time. But I would expect your play to be consistent. Yeah, see, there was a sentry. So it's good that you check. That's a really consistent play. I like that. You expect them to have sentries because you just wreck them with a big Shadowfiend Requiem. And so what you did is instead of using your invis, you checked to see whether or not they had a sentry on the creeps. Your team goes into fight. You're a bit out of position to help them. You try for a Requiem. You get ravaged. You walk away. Yeah, not much you can do there. I can see you wanting to help your team, but your item build doesn't facilitate you helping your team very much there. Like, I think I would have just walked down, maybe, tried to raise from far away, or walk top, tried to farm, just said, screw it, I'm not showing up. It's not a good fight to take. Bit of indecision on your team's part, but also indecision on your part. Because you weren't able to contribute to the fight because you knew there was a sentry there, so you should have either just left or said, whatever, there's a sentry, we'll fight, despite the fact that there's a sentry. And instead, you kind of hung around and didn't really accomplish much for 45 seconds. DD rune, back to farming ancients. You're pretty efficient in your movement. And I bet you're dominating in net worth. Yeah, you're really high up on net worth. Game is close though. 12-12, 20 minutes in. It's anybody's game. They have better late game. You have the more farmed hero. Looks pretty even. I think if you had been a little bit more efficient this game, your net worth could have been 3 or 4K higher. Like, no joke. But you're doing pretty well, so I'm not gonna knock you too hard for that. I've kind of pointed out some of them. Your last hitting could have been a little better. You missed a few here and there, but mostly you've played pretty well. So you sell your stick for a BKB. You don't really need this slot. I would have liked to have kept the stick. It's okay. I mean, you could just wait and use the courier, right? You're going to walk out and farm 1 or 2 creeps. Unless you need the BKB immediately, don't sell your stick. Because you're not using that slot right now. Like here, you just go off and farm creeps. And you could have still had your magic stick. Small mistake. I mean, eventually you're going to sell your magic stick.
Dire's middle
But it's a
tower
really
is
valuable
under
tool,
attack.
and you kind of want it.
Dire's
Mr. Raise
structures
there.
are fortified. Radiant's top tower
So you
is
go
under
for the
attack.
bottom rune.
Radiant
They're
structures
grouping
are
up, pushing
fortified.
top. Good to see you use the glyph. No one uses the glyph when I play with my 20k friend. It's like if I don't press it, he doesn't.
Dire's bottom tower
Or if I
is
don't
under
press it, no
attack.
one does. Trading tier 1 for tier 1.
Dire's bottom
This is a
tower
really good
has
trade.
fallen. Radiant's top tower is under attack. Radiant's top tower
Okay, so I
has
kind of
fallen.
disagree with your positioning here. I know you don't want to reveal yourself because you want to get the surprise Shadowfiend, Shadowblade Requiem, but you know where they are. There's 3 of them or 4 of them top. They were just pushing. There's 1 of them showing mid. You should be DD hitting this tower right now. Like, you've missed out on... I mean, you hit hard. You hit for 300 damage a pop. You've missed out on 1,500 damage. I mean, that's not reduced. So, probably like 400 or 500 damage on the tower. Just because you decided to hang back.
Dire's structures
Now
are
you come up, you
fortified.
start hitting the tower. You kind of waste your Shadow Blade there. They global, you continue
Dire's
chasing.
bottom tower
You
is under
BKB,
attack.
I don't know why. You dive for a kill.
Dire's
Okay, so this was
bottom
all
tower
bad.
has fallen.
This was all really bad. This is just really bad decision making. Okay, so you start the fight by not hitting the tower when you should. You see DK here, light blue, you should know that's Tidehunter, because you should know which color corresponds to which hero in the game. You don't have to know for every hero, but I do it for very specific heroes or important heroes. In this game, the important heroes are Tidehunter because of his teamfight presence, and DK because of his ganking potential on you, and PL. So 3 out of the 5 you should pretty much know. Let's go so we don't have to listen to the TP sound. So you waste your Shadow Blade first off for maybe the extra move speed to walk up and hit the DK. Really didn't need to do that. You could have just walked up and hit him. You've positioned yourself really aggressively, which could or could not be to your benefit. Like, if Tide had Ravage, and I don't know if he does right now. Let's go to free camera. So, Tide just used Ravage. Okay, so I think I know what happened. Let's...
Dire's middle tower is under attack. Dire's
This is
structures are
hilarious.
fortified.
So Tide cancels his TP and Ravage. Alright, so that's... Alright, so we're gonna go back.
Radiant's top tower has fallen.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Dire's structures are
Okay, so if this
fortified.
team fight... We'll go forward against it. So no TP. So right here, this is a lost team fight. If Tide TPs in and ravages properly. It could be okay considering your Undying got his tombstone down before the global silence. But it's very likely that you lose the team fight because Tide TPs in, he ravages, their whole team counter initiates, PL lances you, you die. You could BKB when you see Tide turning in, and if you were able to BKB dodge and Requiem, then it's kind of like a disengage and you maybe kill the DK, maybe the Tide. So maybe it's a good fight for you. It all just kind of depends if you BKB dodge the stun or not. But you're pretty out of position right now. Like if DK instead of running just stuns you and starts hitting you, and then Tide TPs in and ravages the whole team, like you might just lose that fight. And it's all because you're so far forward. Like your hero could be back here right now, and you could be right-clicking him. You don't need to position yourself so aggressively. I'm okay that you did because you have BKB, and if you trust that you can BKB before Tide ravages, then I'm all fine with you being here, but just something to think about. So here we decide to chase. So what catch do you have on your team? That's like the biggest thing you want to think about when you're chasing. And by catch, I refer to as someone who can stun or catch up to an opponent and slow them down so the rest of the team can hit them. And on this team, you really only have Shackle Shot. If you had a Clockwork and like Clockwork hooks and cogs and keeps them in place, then yeah, chase. All fine with that. But your team's not designed to chase. Your team is designed to put a tombstone down, have Dazzle sit in the back, you hit the tower, Jug hits the tower, you got a healing ward, they can't fight into you, you take objectives and say, if you want to fight us, come fight us, we'll kill you. If not, we're taking your towers. And this is just kind of a mistake in not understanding the strategy of how your team is built. You'll see Jug a lot with SF because they have such good synergy in terms of their playstyles. But this is not their playstyle. Diving, tier 3s, wasting BKBs. Like, you weren't punished for this. You can still get the tower, but this cost you a lot to get this tower. You lost a BKB, you didn't get any kills. It's just bad decision making, and I think if Tide had properly ravaged, you might have gotten punished a lot more. It's so funny.
I'll take that as tribute.
He takes your rune. You guys decide to Roche. I'm okay with this. They just use global. They're unlikely to want to team fight you. You don't know that Ravage is on cooldown. That was a dead Tide, but you didn't play it. You didn't move properly. Watch this again. So right here, you're just right-clicking him, and you're just staying in place. We'll go back and watch again. So you walk up the hill, and you right-click him 3 times. You just stand in place. 1. Or I guess you moved a little bit. You didn't raise properly, though. What I would have liked to see is you walk up, right-click, raise, then right-click again, long raise. You might have killed him from that. You might have had to use your Shadow Blade on one of the attacks to kill him. He's pretty high HP, but I think you should have been able to kill him. You Shadow Blade, chase. If they have detection, you might just die. You do have Dazzle, so maybe it's okay. And then you guys retreat. So you were thinking about trying to take Roche there, but you decided against it. You don't know that Ravage is on cooldown, but the fact that Global Silence is down, maybe you want to push for it. Your BKB was down as well. It's a little bit risky to take the Roche there. Yeah, it's probably too risky to Roche. I think if I was feeling manly, I'd be like, yeah, it's a good idea. If I was feeling like a pussy, I'd be like, nah, it's a bad idea. So your movements have kind of slowed down a bit. You had 100 and I think 13 CS at 20 minutes. You only got 20 in the last 4. So your farming is slowing down a bit. You're fighting a little bit more, which is okay. It's not a bad thing. It's just kind of how the state of the game is going. You've taken 4 towers here. We'll do this. We'll pause and we'll kind of assess the state of the game. Score is tied. You know you're doing really well in net worth. You have a pretty good idea that their DK or their PL are doing pretty well. You don't click on heroes very often, and I've been watching mostly from your perspective, so I have no idea what items DK has, no idea what items Tide has, no idea what items PL has. You know, you can't make decisions about the game, your item choices, how you want to fight, if you don't know what items your opponents have. They all 5 could have Midases, and if they all have Midases, you would play a different game than if they all went, than if DK went Guardian Greaves and they had a pipe and 2 BKBs. Now, I'm not saying that's the ideal build for them, but click on enemy heroes, see what items they have. Like right now, you're walking from here, essentially, to here. You could just click on this guy, see what his items are, see how he's doing. It's all about giving yourself more and more information to make decisions. Now, maybe you're playing with a team who tells you, oh, PL just finished Diffusal, oh, DK is going hard. and you don't have to click as often, but oh, you're trying to tell them that it's warded. You just blocked your own camps. See if it's warded there. This is really funny. So it's not warded. So you think there's a ward here for whatever reason. Then you stand in the position that blocks the camps. This is the magic bush spot right here. See, it's a bush. You can tell, and it blocks both of these camps. And then you complain that it's blocked, but you are standing in the position that blocks the camp. That is really funny. So they're all fighting mid. PL's bottom, your bottom. You take a look at the fight. You do look before you TP this time, so I'll give you credit for that. You run to the fight, your team's winning, looks good, you ping out that PL's coming. Team doesn't listen. You have no mana to do anything. You stopped right-clicking the main PL. That was a dead PL, you just stopped right-clicking him. You're clicking him and you change targets. I have no idea why. Oh well, happens. You chase, Alright, no reason to chase that far. You could just die because you chased that far. Like if DK comes out from there, I mean DK's dead. So maybe it's okay. But there's no reason to chase that far. You could have hit the tower 5 or 6 times. Like he has faster movement speed than you probably because he probably went Yasha or some sort of movement speed item and you don't have a movement speed item. So it's unlikely that you're going to catch him. PL is one of the higher base movement speed heroes in the game and SF's kind of in the middle. So I wouldn't expect myself to catch PL unless I had a Yasha or Shadowblade on or some sort of movement speed. Just a bit too far on the chase. You don't get punished for it. It's not a big deal. Farm the camp. Wait for it to stack. So like right now you could be looking around the map. You don't need to watch yourself hit creeps. Like right now you could look mid, see what items Tide has. Does Tide have Blink? Does he have Mech? Did he go Pipe? I don't know. But neither do you. And it's hard to win a game when you don't know what items your opponents have. Because you don't know what they're capable of. I mean, he could have Blink Refresher right now and you'd have no idea. Teammates are all farming. Okay, so this is an inefficiency thing. So when you're farming this, you can also assess sort of where your team is. And if you look at the map, your team is all in the jungle here, so it's likely that they're going to farm this jungle. So if you're looking to maximize farm for your team, I would walk up after this. And I would farm these 2 camps and maybe push out the top lane. You've got a Shadowblade, you can farm a little bit more aggressively than your team can afford to, because you have a bit more of an escape, you have a bit more farm. You can sort of handle the pressure. It's a bit dangerous to walk to their side of the farm, but what you're basically going to end up doing this 40, 50 seconds is you're going to walk by a bunch of your own teammates farming and waste 40 seconds of your time when you could have walked this way and farmed this side of the map and sort of given your team more gold advantage rather than starving your own team, because those could have been all Jugs camps, those could have been Undying's camps, that kind of thing. You see a guy come in ward, just kind of wandering around, waiting for creeps to spawn, farming creeps when they show up. It just seems like you don't have a plan right now. Waiting for things to happen. Like, you guys had a really good plan going. Big team fight breaks out mid. They've used all their spells. You pick off the Wisp. It's good. You farm a creep in the middle of a fight. I don't know why. You're attacking from the low ground. You get killed by Silencer when you have BKB. Okay, this fight was bad. Let's watch this again. Okay, they used all their spells here. I'm okay with you coming back here and killing the Wisp. This is a really good start to the fight. 2 of your heroes are dead. 2 of your heroes are dead at this point. You've lost Windrunner and you've lost Jug. If I were you right now at this point, I would click and I would look to see what's going on in this fight. Because you don't know who's winning. How much HP does DK have? He's obviously BKB'd. We've seen that. How much HP does Tide have? How much HP is PL? Like, what are the HP of Dazzle and Undying? You have no idea at this point. You just blindly run into the fight because you're really strong, but you expect to win. You see 3 heroes right now. How is your team doing? Can your team fight? Probably not. You've lost 2 of your cores. So at this point, you probably just want to retreat. You picked off a hero in the back. Get out. There's no reason for you to go in and try to fight. You decide to fight on, I would say, bad information. You know they're all pretty high health, but you have no idea how your team is doing. And you just want to help them because they're dying. Next mistake, you walk up and you start hitting this Silencer. Now, if you're committed to fight, and I'm okay with you committing to fight, you don't want to fight from the low ground because you have a 25% miss chance, and it punishes you here. You miss 2 or 3 times when you could have just walked a little bit further and attacked him and not had that miss chance. Maybe you miss 1 attack or half of an attack because you walked a little bit further, but it would have been way better. Miss 2, miss 3, then you die to Silencer. You had BKB, you could have BKB'd, you didn't have much mana when you went into that fight, so you couldn't Requiem. You're just fighting to fight, and you're not fighting because you can use your spells or there's something for you to accomplish in this fight. You just feel the need to because your team is fighting. And I think you have to plan a little bit more accordingly when you're moving around the map. And what that means is you should know how much mana it costs to cost Requiem, your Shadow Blade, and maybe 2 raises. And you should always keep that mana on reserve so that you can do those things if the need arises. Because a lot of the time you're just going into these fights and you don't have enough mana because you've used too much of your mana on raising, farming creep cans, that kind of thing. If you're going to more aggressively use your raises to farm like this, I'm totally fine with that, but build an item set that reflects that preference. So get an Aquila, get a Yules, get something that gives you mana regen, and then you can be a little bit more aggressive about using your raises in the jungle. Because currently you're just using raises inefficiently and going to fight in inopportune times for yourself. And it's costing you deaths and giving away a bunch of gold. These are team fights that you could be dominating right now. If you look at your net worth, it is far and away the highest this game. You could be destroying these guys, but instead you fight at half or 3/4 effectiveness and essentially make it a fair fight when it should be an unfair fight where you are winning. That's happened 3 times now that you've gone into fight and not had enough mana to use your spells. Requiem is the most powerful SF spell. Not only does it do an absurd amount of damage, if you're standing on top of the target, but it also is a 50% damage reduction. That is so significant. They do 50% less damage for 5 seconds. Like, that can win you fights. A lot of the time in pro games you'll see an SF just Requiem at the edge of the fight. They're not Requiem, they're not using the ult for damage, they're using it for the damage reduction. And a lot of the times he's picked for the damage reduction. But you haven't, you've Requiemed once this game in a big team fight mid at minute 16, and it got you a triple kill. But we haven't seen it since then. Just so you know, Shadow Blade, it's about 75 mana, 200 for Requiem, and then 150 for raises. So you want to keep somewhere around 422 mana on you at all times. And that's like your I can fight mana pool. More farming, picking up souls. You just lost a big fight, you respawn. I'm okay with this, but you're not accomplishing anything. For the past 20 minutes, there really hasn't been a plan. Didn't spawn the little guys again. You've just been wandering around, and if a team fight breaks out, you try to get there, but you usually show up late. You're not forcing any action on the map. Whereas with your lineup, I would like you to see what you did in the first 15 minutes, which is you walk around, you take towers, you put down healing ward, you put down tombstone, and you force them to fight into you. And instead, you're kind of wandering around, fighting in the middle of the map, not fighting on objectives. Like at this point, I would be like, hey team, let's group up. Can we take top tower together? Can we take Roche together? And if somebody says no on your team, ask why. They are waiting on an item, then say, okay, cool, we'll wait for that item, then we'll go. Sometimes your team won't communicate, and that makes the game a bit harder. But strategically, you guys are playing this wrong. Your team pushes because they have better late game. You need to force the action. And instead, you're kind of just sitting back. Jug goes in Shadow Blades. You go for a backstab on your Shadow Blade. It's good. You sit and watch. What a funny death. Like, look at how strong you are when you Requiem. Team dies, you clean up. Okay, so that was a good fight. We'll go look at the fight again, because I think you made some mistakes. So right here, we'll go until he stops spinning. So you decide to Shadow Blade and run around. Go for the backstab. I'm okay with that. But why not just Shadow Blade and run in? Or just run in. Like, you don't need to Shadow Blade. And there's no reason for you to go around. I mean, if you're looking for Silencer or you're looking for Wisp beforehand, that can be okay. But I just don't see a point to this, because the team fight happens, and for 10 to 15 seconds, you aren't there. Then you walk in. You've already walked in, and your Undying has died. Then here you start canceling your ult, then you stand here for 2 seconds, then you BKB and start right-clicking, and then you ultimate. Just a lot of inefficiencies with how you're moving. You got a triple kill here, so it looks like you're playing really well and you're dominating the other team. But you could have Shadow Blade in, and after maybe you save your BKB for Silencer ulti. I'm totally fine with that. And then when he Silencer ultis, you BKB Requiem immediately. Or you start attacking, and if somebody wastes a spell on you, then you BKB. But you just used your BKB for no reason. PL played like a dummy and ran right into you, and died to your Requiem. So there's bad plays on both sides. Then you walk up, you clean up. But because you kind of abandoned your team for 15 seconds, your Jug and Undying died. Whereas if you had just stayed in the front, they wouldn't have died. Granted, you may have not gotten the kills because you wouldn't have been able to flank the Wisp and the Silencer. But I think you just, by going around, you kind of sacrificed your team to die when you are the frontline hero. That's how SF is played. He's played as the frontliner because he's big, he's strong, he buys tanky items, and if you go on and he just BKBs and Requiems, and you can't kill him. And that's how you want to play. Give your bottle the dazzle, that's nice. Especially with a healing ward behind you, especially with a dazzle behind you, you've got Grave. Like, allow your supports and your other heroes on your team to use their spells to support you, rather than watching them die and then cleaning up afterward. Like, supports aren't there to right click, they're there to use their spells. And so that means that you need to be the frontliner, even though you have Shadow Blade. Like, look at your HP. You have 2k health, you have 15 armor. 13 armor, I guess. There's someone else who has an aura. If we look at the rest of the team, like, Windrunner has 14 health, 8 armor, Jug, 10 armor, 1400 health. You're the tankiest hero in the game, practically, other than DK. Like, there's no reason for you not to be up in front. Maybe Tide is pretty tanky. Reaver, what is he doing? More farming. So at this point in the game, we'll sort of stop and we'll sort of assess the game. Game's pretty even, 34 minutes. I would say you're still the top farmer. Top net worth, if I could say. You got an ultra kill there. But the game's really even. You know, we don't know which way the game's going to go. PL looks like he's getting pretty big. I still don't know what items he has because you haven't clicked on him. Still don't know what items DK has. I know what items Tide has because I clicked on him. But you don't. And that's really hard to play against a team when you don't know what items they have. I'm not going to harp on that anymore. But you're still really well off. And I think you're still in a position where you could win the game. You're 5 levels above everyone else. Like, the strategy for your team should be you walk up and hit a tower. And if they engage on you, you've got Dazzle Grave, you've got BKB, you've got Requiem, you've got Soul Rip, you've got counter engage with Shackle Shot, you've got like Healing Ward to heal you. Like, there's an entire list of counter initiation you could be doing if you're just sitting up front hitting the tower. But you guys aren't putting yourself in that situation to win. And I think it's just a lack of understanding of how your lineup is supposed to function. So you see a courier, pick off the courier, run away. That's nice. Okay, so this is what you were talking about in your post. Jug goes in and fights, Jug dies. Then you go in, you BKB Requiem, you get globaled, you die. Alright, so this is all bad. And I think you admitted this is bad. First things first, when you have an Aegis, you normally decide before a fight happens whether or not you want to BKB on your first life or BKB on your second life. If you're a hero like Death Prophet or Razor, or heroes where their ultimate doesn't work post BKB, generally you BKB before you die. If you, or DK for example, you BKB before you die. But if you're a hero that is just as effective on the second life BKBing, you're mostly going to BKB on that second life. There you kind of screwed yourself because you BKB'd on your first life and then died. And they didn't use any spells on you. I went back too far. God, that's loud.
Dire's courier has been killed.
You kind of screwed yourself because you BKB'd on your first life, and so none of them used their spells to kill you, and then when you came back you didn't have magic immunity, and they had all their spells to kill you. Your goal with Aegis is to get them to waste their spells to kill you. And they won't use them if you're BKB'd. Right? Especially if you're the only target. If somebody else is around, maybe they'll use their spells. But you've wasted the point of BKB. If they had Ravaged and, you know, Silencer ultied and, I don't know, DK Dragon Tailed you before you died, beautiful, because then you BKB, all their spells are on cooldown, and you are the boss because they can't touch you. In this situation, you basically played it the opposite way. I was the boss for 5 or 6 seconds, they right-clicked me down, came back, they used all their spells, I died. So at this point, Jug goes in, and I'm going to say his decision was a bad one, and that's fine, but that doesn't stop you from making your decision. And at this point, you're deciding, do I go in or do I not? It's currently a 3v5. You have Dazzle in the back, it's you and Jug, who's already used his ultimate. At this point, I think you retreat. And you say, Jug, that was bad. That was a bad choice. Like, you shouldn't have gone in there. Like, and you just leave him. As a core, it's more important to not die than it is to try and save your teammates in a lot of situations. And this is one of those situations. You already know that. So you BKB, you die. So why did you BKB up here? What were you stopping? One thing that I have sort of alluded to is when you have a BKB, you want them to waste a spell before you BKB. Like, there's no point to just BKB to BKB. It is the safe BKB play to just immediately BKB, as in no one will touch you. But the better play is to wait until something happens. Like, Tidehunter starts his Ravage animation, you BKB. Because then you're forcing Tide to Ravage, and you're dodging it with BKB. Or Silencer uses his Last Word, his nuke on you, and then you BKB, and Last Word is effectively wasted and now put on cooldown. If you just BKB flat out, you're basically getting less value out of BKB than you could. So you die, they have a sentry, they didn't use any spells on you, you die again, they use all their spells. Windrunner comes to help you, she dies as well. You're all just walking in one after the other and dying for the same reason. You tried to save Jug, Windrunner tried to save you, and you're dying at 35 minutes, which means this is probably a game-losing fight. Unless you guys have buybacks. You have buyback, Windrunner doesn't. The biggest thing you got going for you is you do have Requiem still, but you don't have BKB. So they're pushing, Undying walks to his death. That was just stupid. As an Undying there, you want to delay the push, but you don't want to die. So as him, I would be standing back here and I would decay the wave to pull the wave away from the tower.
Radiant's middle tower has
Jug
fallen.
goes in,
Radiant's
he
middle
spins,
towers are under attack.
retreats. Like, that's the kind of play you want to make to defend your base. You go in, you nuke the creep wave, then you get back. Because your goal is to stay alive until you can fight on more even footing. It's very unlikely that you win a 3v5. I know I'm kind of like grilling you in a game that you're playing pretty well, honestly. You're 11-3. You contributed a lot to your team. You're the highest net worth in the game. Like, don't take it personally. I'm trying to help you. Some inefficiencies, not the end of the world. Like, if you play like this consistently, I could see your MMR going up. But I want you to see your mistakes more so than just, oh, Jug played poorly, or Jug fought when I didn't want to, and then I made a mistake because Jug put me in a bad situation. It's you made a mistake, learn from your mistake, and play better the next game. So you go back to farming, probably concerned with getting your souls up. Completely understandable. Tell your team, let's not fight, let me farm my souls. Butterfly is the item you consider next. I mean, I'm not criticizing your item build too much. I have a little bit. But it's really hard for me to know what item build is correct for this game based on the fact that you have no idea what items they have. You know, if DK went MKB, you might have an MKB right now, and Butterfly would be useless. AC would be pretty good, but like I said, I don't know. I'm not going to critique your items too much more, just because I don't know what they have. I know Silencer has an Eggs, because he's now draining your mana. Your team is fighting mid without you. And dying. You didn't even look to see what was happening. You decided to just split push. I'm okay with you split pushing here, but you should be telling your team not to fight. So one TP's back. You go to pick up your item. I mean, I would have TP'd back earlier. Yeah, you're just giving up your racks. Jug buyback and dies, and you're just farming. So I don't know what's going on right now. I don't know if you're mad at your team.
Radiant's middle barracks has
or
fallen.
tilting or whatnot, but you're just like, you didn't go back to defend your base. You weren't with your team when they fought. They fought without you. That's kind of their mistake, not yours, because it is your responsibility to fight, but it is your responsibility to tell them when you're not there. See, manually right click the troll so it spawned little guys. I'm kind of okay with you just farming right now, saying my team made a mistake and I'm just going to get as much space off of it as possible. So we'll take kind of an assessment of the game. Pause it and take a look. So you're still probably the most farmed hero in the game, but they have now taken a mid barracks, which makes it a little bit more difficult for you to win. Your Jug is pretty underfarmed. Windrunner's doing okay. Undying and Dazzle are trying their best. They're just supports. Their scores don't look the best, but they've been in most fights. They've been trying to help the team, so I think they're doing pretty well, honestly. But their lineup looks pretty good. Dragon Knight's catching up to you in level. PL looks pretty strong now. Their lineup looks scary. And your way back into this game is to somehow either take a team fight and beat them, or split push them to the point that they make a mistake and you can gank. Now, based on the lineup you have, I would opt more for trying to team fight them with BKBs.
Coin for me.
But you could take the split push route if you wanted with SF. You sell your Shadow Blade. Did you just sell your Shadow Blade now? When did you get rid of your Shadow Blade? Yeah, it was right here. I don't know. I think you really hurt your net worth there, didn't you? So you're at 19k net worth right now. You walk over to the secret shop, you sell your Shadow Blade, which is effectively, you're effectively getting rid of 1500 net worth. Maybe 1k net worth. To buy a butterfly and a helm. You should have just kept your Shadow Blade. Yeah, you should have just kept your Shadow Blade. You're concerned about your buyback. You decide not to save for buyback. Yeah, I think your Shadow Blade's more valuable than this helm. You basically dumped 1,000 net worth for an item that's not as good as the item you had. That was really weird. I'd have to ask you what your thinking was there. I mean, I can understand that you would want a TP in your inventory, and maybe that's the reason, and maybe you feel like you need lifesteal because you can't man-fight them. But a lot of the reason you can't man-fight them is you just don't pop your BKBs at the right times.
Dire's middle tower is under attack. Dire's
You push mid by
structures are
yourself.
fortified.
They TP, no one TPs. You go back to take the tower.
Dire's middle tower
They all
is
show
under
bottom.
attack. Dire's middle tower has fallen. Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
Okay, so let's talk for a second strategically. If you look at the bottom tier 2 tower,
Structures are fortified.
so this situation, if you look at the bottom tier 2 tower, most of the tier 2s are actually it's a disadvantage to protect your tier 2 tower because of the way the map is laid out most of the time. If you look at like this tower, for instance, you're fighting uphill as Radiant to defend this tower, which means you have no vision up this hill whatsoever. And you could really get abused by that if this tower is dead. So you walk, there's like a very narrow opening, which really bodes really well for heroes like Darkseer, Tidehunter to come in and get like Blink Ravages, those kinds of things. So most of the time when you're defending and you're the team that's behind, you just let the tier 2s go. There's no reason to go out and defend this tower. You defend at the much better tier 3, which is where you have the strategical advantage. You have the high ground. They do not. You have the advantage of them walking through the choke point, whereas you do not have to walk through the choke point. So who cares? At 41 minutes, this objective means nothing. The 200 gold to each hero means nothing. Right? Everyone has 18k, 15k net worth. Don't defend this tower. There's no reason to. I like that you're split pushing. This shows really good understanding by you. But you should be telling your team, defend at the tier 2, do not glyph the tier 2. There's no reason to glyph the tier 2. Just let it go. Alright, we'll keep watching. That's something that happens all the time, the desire to defend towers, and here they decide to let it go, which is good, but pink gets caught under the tower. Or yellow maybe just goes in. I don't know what the plan was. But your team is fighting without you. You back. You could have just fought this guy. I mean, I know you don't know what items he has, but you could have just fought him. You know they're all bottom. You're the strongest unit on the map. It takes at least 2 for them to kill you. And if you just fight him, you have BKB if he starts to do too much damage. Or if somebody else TP in, you could just BKB TP. You could just flutter and run away. Because you have max move speed and he doesn't. Just fight him. Like, this is how you split push. Is if one person comes to defend, you kill them. If 2 come to defend, you TP and you fight 5v3. You could even, if the hero that TP's back is stronger than you, like let's say this was a Doom, for instance, with an Aghanims, and a Shiva's and an AC, and he could just kick your ass, you TP back and you fight 5v4. Don't just run from a hero that you're stronger than. Like Wisp is like, hey, then he comes back to help him. He's probably just going to bring Silencer back, honestly. You TP'd home. So you've given up your split push. Wisp goes back. So your team kind of defended by having Jug throw his life away, but you really defended that push by split pushing to where Silencer retreated. And now you're pushing out another wave, which is really good, because your goal is to be pushing down this tier 3 by the time they reach your base. Unfortunately, there's still tier 2s still in the game, so that poor decision making in the mid game, that 16 to 30 minutes where you guys didn't do anything, is kind of hurting you because there's now a tier 2 in your way, preventing you from winning this game. So you're split pushing, watching your hero hit creeps. I would really like to see you move your camera and see what's going on in the fight, so you know what's going on. Now you've used all your mana, so you can't even TP. You're split pushing, watching your hero hit towers, not watching the fight. Your team is dying. You have no mana to TP.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
Unstoppable.
Radiant's middle tower.
So you've got a good grasp of what you should be doing, which is split pushing. But you're not doing it quite the right way. You want to be split pushing and seeing what's going on. You don't need to watch your hero hit towers. What you do is you move your camera so that you can watch, and then you use your ears to listen. And what you're listening for are sounds that sound like TPs, because you can hear TPs based on where your hero is, not what you're looking at. BKB early. Show up to the fight. And die. Because everyone else is dead. Like, you're really strong. But your team always fights without you. because you're not back to help your team when you should be, because you're not paying attention to like what's going on, so you don't know when you should come back or when you should not. You also, I don't know if you're communicating with your team or not, but you should be talking to your team like, hey, what's going on? Do you need me back? Should I TP now? Should I TP later? That kind of stuff. So now you all go mid. Looks like kind of a YOLO push. You're using mana to push, that's fine, but make sure you have enough mana to cast all your spells. We've run into this issue a couple of times. You write on the map, hey, let's push in top. I like that. Your team's still going mid. In this situation, because your team did not come top, you kind of just want to go with your team. Even though it's the right decision to go push top, you want to make sure that you're with your team here, rather than, because there's no objective to take here. I guess you're just going throne. And Jug dies. So your positioning was okay there. Jug's was pretty bad. He just ran in and got stunned and died. But your team wasn't with you, like you weren't walking with them. There wasn't a reason for you to push that far without them. Some inefficient raises, not the biggest deal. Something that helps with raising, I don't know if you have this active or not, but you can press, there's an option. I think you have to enable that in the console. I don't have it enabled, so I don't know that much about it, but there's an option where you can press a button, and when you click, your hero will just face that direction no matter what. And a lot of Shadowfiends find that helpful. The other ones is just click right in front of you. That's what I do. But I would Google on the internet if you want to find that. I think it's just an auto-executable file command that you plug in. And it's like you press your control button or you press your, I don't know, P button, and it allows you to aim your hero for raising. More farming, more pushing mid. This is kind of like the YOLO, let's go end the game. This is really the first time you've been within a screen of your team for a team fight, and I'd like to see you stay there. You've got the Aegis. Here, I'd like to see you send the courier over to here. And sell your boots immediately so that you have buyback. Small little thing. But if you died right now, you wouldn't have buyback. Dodge Ravage with your BKB. Brave. I guess you have Aegis. Same thing, you BKB'd on your first life and died on your second life. I think it's just too little too late. It's just too late in the late game, and their late game is just stronger. And you kind of wasted your mid game by not using your lineup to its strengths. And you just don't have enough farm anymore to carry. Even though your net worth is higher than the PLs right now. 20k on PL is worth more than 21k on SF. And I think that's the end of the game. I think overall you played pretty well. But like I said, you just make some decisions without information. The first one is you don't know their items, so it's really hard for me to suggest good item builds for you without looking at Dota buff afterwards or looking at some of their item builds later. The other thing you don't do very well is you don't look before you TP. You don't manage your mana the best. You tend to run out of mana. and not have enough mana to cast your spells if you want to get kills or things, and then go for kills when you don't have the mana to use your spells. It's pretty bad. So I guess a couple of points for your learning. When you're in your games in the future, keep track of how much mana you need to fight. And if you don't have that mana, tell your team we're not fighting. And just tell them to back or tell them to retreat, and then just go retreat. Don't fight without that minimum amount of mana. Then the second thing is every 10 minutes, assess the game. How do we win? What's our best way to win? What do we do? Kind of thing. How's the game going? Who do I need to shut down? Who am I focusing in team fights? And the third thing is click on enemy heroes when you're doing things that don't require your immediate attention. So if you're attacking creeps, if you're farming ancients, click on heroes in lane, see what their items are, give yourself more information to make better decisions throughout the game. It looks like you played pretty well this game. You have a lot of kills, but you don't have a lot of assists. You weren't there for your team, and you kind of picked kills and then ran in and died by yourself after your team was dead. When in reality, you should have been the frontliner. You should have been taking the damage and allowing your healing team to support you. And I think that would have led to a better victory. So I hope this was helpful for you. I hope I didn't flame you too hard. The goal is not to flame you. I'm trying to be helpful as best I can. And I wish you the best, dude. Let me know if you want anything from me, or you want any other feedback or have questions for me as well. So that's it for me, and I'll hopefully see you around.